Hello there, and welcome to the Story Arc Podcast, the place where we unravel the secrets of storytelling in order to become better professionals and better human beings. My name is Glod, and I'll be your host for this podcast. As I've mentioned in the previous episode, we will dedicate the next weeks to deconstructing narratives and archetypes. And we're focusing on the narratives and archetypes that either don't serve us anymore, or the ones that need an update because either they're not in tune with the reality of human experience, or because they need a little bit of an upgrade in order for them to serve us better and to use them actually to better ourselves and better society in general. Now, today I'd like to start off with one archetype that is quite prevalent in business culture, in education, personal development, as well as media, and that is the successful person archetype. For example, whenever we think of a successful person, we think of a person that either encompasses one of these three features, if not all three of them together. And that is, they have a great deal of money, they're very rich, they have a great deal of performance in a particular field, either business, science, arts, or sports, and are also famous. Right? This is the profile that we think of when we think of successful people. And we tend to look to people like them because we are looking for inspiration to become better ourselves. And there's nothing bad with that, let's be honest. It's good to look for other people to try to become better and things of that nature. That I do not discount that at all. However, there are certain, how should I call them, fine prints we need to take into account when we look at these stories, as well as when we consume them or we see them promoted in media. Because there are certain aspects about promoting this type of archetype that really can be damaging. And I'm talking here especially when it comes to training in the business context. I mean, this is my job, and I for one want to make sure that we pass on the right values and principles and ideas to the people in that participate in our work. It's important because sometimes this informs the parenting style of some parents. It's important because it also sets the tune for what is it that we want or that we value as a society more than anything. So when we look at this profile that, people that have a lot of money, they're famous and have achieved huge peak performance, is that sometimes obsession with this type of success discourages other types of success. Because let's be honest, this is an incredibly limited perspective on what success could be. Some of us may be incredibly successful at being in a relationship. If you think about it, a lot of people are struggling with relationships. In fact, 50% of most marriages end up in divorce. And so there's also the importance of, relationship success. Why is that something that we don't value more than anything? That, hey, you managed to have a healthy relationship. Success to be a parent, that's also something we have a hard time doing. Not everybody is good at being a parent. Actually, a lot of people are awful at it. And so maybe that's another type of success worth celebrating. Maybe it's being successful at having good friends, or just being happy with what you have, or just opening a small little store that is not going to scale into a huge innovative business. You get my point. There's so many layers and a wide range of possibilities when it comes to success. Why focus on just these three? Once we do that, it's as if that everyone else will start feeling as if, well, I have this success, but I don't have that type of success. And sometimes it can drive an unhealthy type of either consumerism, that we try to up ourselves so that we look and behave as flashy as the highly successful people we follow, or we put into our let's say personal lives an objective that is incredibly unrealistic. We try so hard to work hard to become incredibly successful entrepreneurs, and maybe we're not all destined to be that. Maybe some of us are just destined to have small businesses, and that's fine. Maybe the business you will start will fail and you'll realize entrepreneurship is not for you, and that's fine. And you can be incredibly successful at working in a company for someone else, right? And there's nothing bad about it. This is kind of the problem that it sometimes sets, that if you are not successful in these terms or not as successful in these terms, somehow you are deemed unworthy. It's not a clear-cut message, but sometimes it's incredibly subtly communicated. Now, I'm going to mention a few names as I, follow along in this podcast, and it's important for you guys to understand I'm not trying to hate on these people, but I just want to bring some healthy criticism and commentary because I believe it will inform them to become better, and I believe it also informs us on how to choose better content. And you can feel free to disagree, and like I said, I'm not hating on them. Actually, I appreciate their work and their good intention. I just believe it's also important to have a different point of view on how they approach things. So, for example, you look at most of the content done by Gary Vaynerchuk, really interesting guy, quite motivated, he has a lot of passion. Yet sometimes the more you listen to him, the more he makes you feel like if you don't do things the way he tells you should do it, then you're crap, then you're bad, then you're not productive. And kind of it makes you feel really bad about yourself. Now, don't get me wrong. It's good to have a bit of a pep talk from time to time when you're being lazy. But then there is a difference between trying to wake up someone from complete laziness and doing nothing to obsessively telling people to do more, be more, do more, be more, and not be satisfied with what they already have, or to just simply say, look, if this is enough to make you happy, then that's enough. You don't have to become the next big thing. You can be okay as you are. This is something that Brené Brown talks a great deal about. This idea that one of the shames that is really dangerous and prevalent in our society is this shame of being ordinary, that there's somehow something wrong with just being an ordinary individual. And I say, how about we don't do that anymore and we try to make people feel happy for where they are? If you're a street sweeper, if you're just a doctor, if you're just a clerk or just a teacher, you're not supposed to feel inferior as an inferior member of society. You are a member of society just like everyone else. We all deserve the same value and worth, and we shouldn't to put other people on pedestals thinking that they're more worthy or of more value for society. Another problem is that sometimes whenever we talk about people like that or we listen to their point of view, sometimes they can subtly promote dominance and competition, especially when it comes to sports, right? We're like, yeah, you have to be tough, you have to do this or that. And sometimes because we value them so much, we forget the other people that also take part in it. Sure, we all talk about who won the championship and who won the gold medal. But what about number 10 that was on that race, right? The one that didn't get, was not 1, 2, or 3, but he was number 10 on that list. He's the number 10th person in the world. How come we give no attention to them, and why are they not mentioned? Maybe, of course, they are not the peak performers of the world, but maybe they worked a great deal to become to this place. Why don't we give them the same credit? Why not rather than have a panel with just the first 2 great winners of gold medals, why not have the whole panel of all the companies or all of the performers involved, right? Wouldn't that be more interesting to try to understand everyone, not just the perspective of the winner? This way, because we always give voice to the winner, the losers are left suddenly told that you are an outcast, and you know what? You don't want to be that. And of course, there's a famous song that I used to listen to when I was a kid from Nelly, when he said, I am number 1, 2 is not a winner, and 3 nobody remembers. To a certain extent, he's right, but we should change that. It's huge to be number 3. It's huge to be number 10 in the world at anything, right? And rather than just focus and obsessing with number 1, we should obsess with everybody who's doing well in a field and not just give a special pedestal place for the highest of them all. Another thing, though, that is again subtle and we miss out, and this is probably the thing that I believe is the more damaging part, is that it focuses too much on the individual rather than on the team that makes that success happen. So for example, you look at the stories of entrepreneurs like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and and Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, the whole deal. Like, there's a lot of books on it. There's a lot of content written on their stories and how they did things. And look, I'm not saying, like, for example, I'm a big Elon Musk fan and I'm not hating on them. They are very bright people, some of them, and there is something about them that, makes them stand out. But nothing that they have ever created was done by themselves. Everything that they have created has been the work of a collective effort. The success of Amazon, the success of Tesla, the success of SpaceX, Facebook, and all that, it stands on the shoulders of so many employees, of so many people that created that project from just an idea to the big realities that we see today. It's cool to, promote the ones and appreciate the ones that started them. But then when we focus just on them, we're missing out on the people that really did the most of the hard work of making those cars, of building those rockets, of figuring out the science, of making sure that your orders come every day in time. Most of the founders of these businesses are sitting in chairs taking decisions that are very easy while the hard work is being done by employees and, the initial teams of founders and the people who funded these projects to begin with, right? We tend to forget that particular aspect and we make people feel like, oh my God, they are the reason why these businesses are successful. They are not the only reason. Sure, it helps to have a very inspiring CEO that starts things properly, but at the end of the day, it's a team effort. And we shouldn't try to encourage in our companies just these type of one-person success stories, right? We should try to promote the importance of teamwork, of collaboration, of bringing innovative ideas together, and that sometimes the point is not to be the smartest person in the room. Rather, the point is to learn from everybody and to be collaboratively involved in a process of creation and development, So that's the thing that I invite, okay, sure, let's take into account their individual contribution and what they've done. But at the end of the day, the success of their business and their personal success doesn't just lie in what they do. It also lies in the people involved in what they do and the people that work for them. Because the last thing that I also believe it's important to mention is that whenever we talk about the stories of successful people or we listen to their input, we rarely hear anything about privilege and luck. Let's take the story again of Elon Musk. Great guy, amazing person, great business idea. Would he be able to start SpaceX if he was born in Kazakhstan? Would he be able to do that if he was born in Rwanda? Would he be able to do that in Bangladesh, in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Argentina, in Colombia? If the answer is most likely not, or it would be incredibly difficult, then you are actually thinking quite rationally, and you're taking into account the fact that a great deal of someone's success very much depends on where they start from. If you are in a country that not only is a stable democracy, which is an important factor, but also has a vibrant economy, has a qualitative educational system, and there's a lot of funding around to fund huge business ideas, and there are a lot of smart people that are willing to be part of those projects, then of course you have more chances to succeed. If you're not in a place like that, you are forced to either rethink your business model or to, start thinking a lot smaller. And sometimes it's not even that. Of course, you can come from all of these things and have all of these elements, yet one of the things that tends to be the deciding factor for the success of a business, for example, is timing. This is one TED Talk that has been, that I'll link in the description of the podcast and in some of the comments here, is this idea that the main defining factor for the success of a company, besides the team, is timing, right? There's execution, there's the idea, but timing is incredibly important. And so that's one factor that we also need to take into account. Some people can be lucky to start a business at the right time, and that's what creates a domino effect of their business expanding so quickly. And privilege is important because it's just beyond the fact that of the country you're born in. It's your possibility to bounce back from failure. Now, I was curious at one point to figure out what country or what countries have the most millionaires per capita, per population. And I stumbled upon one TED Talk, and then I've stumbled upon other resources that I will again link, that talked about, well, the countries that actually have the most billionaires in terms of population is related to population are the Scandinavian countries. Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Sweden is usually number one. Iceland as well. And these are countries that have huge taxes on wealthy people, on income taxes, right? They're incredibly huge taxes. Yet these ones fund a social, like a welfare program that gives you the freedom to start a business. And if it fails, you always have a safety net to bounce back on. And that's why there are a lot of entrepreneurs there. There's like safe haven for that. And there are a lot of millionaires there, right? Because in order to start a successful business, you have to be willing to fail. Now, of course, we've been talking a great deal about failure in the business world, and I'm happy about that. But not everybody can have the same possibility of failure. So if you live in a country like Sweden, where also you can do university for free, you can follow whatever studies you like, and you don't have to follow them for the money, you can follow them for passion. And then guess what? If you start a business and it fails, you have a welfare system that really takes care of you if you want to bounce back. Then of course you have a lot more freedom to create, to do a lot of things. And that's part of the reason why these countries are successful in that regard. Now, not everybody can afford a failure in a real sense. Like once you fail at something, if you put all of your life savings into it and it doesn't work out, this can really, destroy the family you're part of, or it can destroy your life, and it can have some damaging effects, right? And so it's important that we rethink a little bit this archetype. And I have 3 simple suggestions that I believe are important for us whenever we think about how we promote success in our companies, in our lives, in our families, in our groups of friends, and how we look at these stories and how we learn to filter out what we get out of the stories. First of all, let's widen the range of success. Let's look at success not just from the perspective of money, of fame, and of performance. There are other successful things in life. Just being happy with who you are, being good at teaching, whatever it is, let us, widen that range so that we involve everybody. Because success shouldn't be this thing that is designated for the few. It should be something that we should all attain for. And it shouldn't be something that will just narrowly focus on these particular domains. There's a lot more about success that we can explore. And you probably have people in your lives that you consider successful that don't have any of those 3. And so let's have those people in mind more, and let's bring them to the conversation as well. Second, whenever we think about, valuable traits to reach success, let's not always fall back on, as Winston Churchill used to say, as Steve Jobs used to say, or whatever trope like that. How about we use references to people we already know? In our lives, we have stories of people overcoming adversity. We have people that are inspiring and that have valuable ideas to share. We don't have to go all the way to Steve Jobs to get our inspiration, right? You have definitely coworkers that you can learn from. Your parents, whether you like them or not, whether you agree them or not, they still can tell you some valuable things if you really listen to them. If I need a story about overcoming adversity, I don't need to think about the story of Mike Tyson or some other athlete. I can look at the story of how my mom in the 80s decided to divorce her first husband because he was violent to her. And she also did the really daring thing of, in the conservative communist Romania of the 80s, have an abortion and do that with very little resources. That was a courageous thing she did. And the fact that she's here today and all of the challenges she went through in order to maintain the family, like that for me is the inspiration I need. I don't need to, find those particular stories. And I believe it's important that we take those pedestals and either we bring them down or we start putting people that we know on that pedestal, because they deserve that too. There are people in our lives that we can learn from, and it's not just the rich people, not just the famous people, not just the performers. And last but not least, let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Yes, they are bright people. Yes, they're doing some interesting things, but let's not forget, most of their success is also based on the privilege of where they're from. It's also based on the teams that they formed and the people working for them, and the fact that their life is very different from yours. Sure, you might hear about the habits of millionaires and highly successful people, but don't forget, they have a lot of personal assistants that take care of them, that do their schedules. And so that's incredibly unhealthy comparison, because you, besides your daily life, you have to take care of children, you have to pay your taxes and do all that stuff. They don't have to do that because they have people they pay to do that for them. And this is a detail we tend to overlook. Therefore, my invitation is, next time when you have to encourage people to be better or to inspire them in a certain way, rather than going into the old classical archetypes of the successful person, look at someone around you that reflects that even more. Let's bring these things closer to our daily life. And let's not just make it about all of these free things. Let's make them about more. Let's let it be about being successful as being a good person, at being compassionate and empathetic, at being funny, or at being whatever it is that those people are and that you value them from. At the end of the day, it's not bad that we value successful people and that we, aspire for success. But it really matters how we do it and who we promote along the way. Because if not, what we risk is that we promote individuality, unhealthy competition, and also an unhealthy standard to strive for. And success shouldn't come with that price. Success should be something that we can all enjoy. Success should be inclusive, and success should also value the fact that most of the times it doesn't come from just one person. It's a collective effort. It's a group of people coming together to make something great. Thank you very much for joining in this week's episode. I look forward to having you back for our next episodes where we deconstruct more narratives and more archetypes. That being said, I wish you a great week. And if you have any comments or any suggestions regarding this episode or future episodes, feel free to leave them down in the comments or to write me an email at alex@storyarc.eu. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.